There's also a big fight and a big night, as I mentioned there, in Las Vegas on Saturday. Manny Pacquiao returns in a potentially, I think, is a hard fight against the unbeaten Tim Bradley. That means he doesn't know how to lose. That's a nice expression. I like it anyway. Manny must win, in my opinion, and he must win well. Must look good doing it. Bradley is slick, ready, and knows that Manny has not looked great in a couple of fights recently. There are, so the men in the Pacquiao business keep insisting, many and varied reasons for Manny's recent form, or slight dip in form, although obviously he's fighting good guys. Gary Paul wrote the book, Pac-Man, Behind the Scenes with Manny Pacquiao, which is a good book. You can get it on Amazon. We talked to Gary about it before you. And I'm delighted to say that Gary's just landed in Las Vegas where the fight takes place, and he joins me on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Gary. How are you?
Hey, Bunsey. Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. We're on the phone again. Pacquiao's in the ring. First of all, I'm going to ask you, what's your gut feeling here? Are we going to see an almost a rejuvenated Manny Pacquiao, a fresher Manny Pacquiao, a more focused Manny Pacquiao, Gary?
I think we are. I think we are. I mean, I actually disagree with you. I don't think Bradley is that big of a test for him. I mean, Pacquiao's sort of re-energized himself. Yep. I think he's found religion, and yep, whatever you think of that, I've seen him in training, and he looks a lot younger. He looks a lot more motivated than in his last couple fights, and he had a lot of bad habits, and it seems like at least in the last couple months, he's got rid of those. So he looks good. I think he's a much better fighter than Bradley.
So, I think he's a much better fighter than Bradley. I'm just working on Bradley being fired up and Manny being a little bit lackluster. He looked a little bit disinterested at times against Mosley, and the Marquez fight was it was a hard fight. I know Marquez is a great fighter and a bit of a bogeyman when it comes to him. And I was just thinking that somewhere in the middle there, I know Bradley's a bit boring and he's a bit predictable, but he's fought unbeaten guys. He's fought a couple of back-to-back southpaws, and you know, listen, I'm fishing, but I half feel I'm getting a bite on him. You know, you know what I mean? I'm not a big bite.
I think you're fishing a little. I think the question really is, and you sort of touched on it, is where is Pacquiao? He's 33 years old, but he's probably much more like 38 or 39 years old. He's had a lot of wars.
A lot of years on the clock.
His style is put his head in there and give a lot of volume, but he takes a lot of volume.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder if where he is, what his boxing age is.
And Aaron...
Bradley is hungry. He's a young guy, but you got to look at his competition, and I don't see anybody on that. Those 28 fights that he's won that are in a category of Manny Pacquiao.
Neither do I. But then again, at the same time, the Manny Pacquiao, parts of the Manny Pacquiao we've seen in the last couple of fights have been sort of alien to Pacquiao observers. He's not looked quite right. I mean, there were certainly times in the Marquez fight when you got the idea he was close to sort of going, I've had enough of this. He just but bear in mind, we were warned by Bob Arum before the fight, and we were warned by Freddie Roach before the fight in no uncertain terms that Manny's head wasn't right, which I thought at the time were quite strong comments.
Well, let me give you a little inside scoop. Okay, on the Mosley fight, he was he knocked Mosley down. When was that? The second or third round?
Early,
and then Mosley was running the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can necessarily. He didn't look great, Pacquiao.
Yeah.
But Mosley
was a factor. Yeah, Mosley was a factor there.
And then in this, Marquez has always fought Pacquiao really well. Pacquiao has a difficult time with counter punchers.
Yeah.
And Pacquiao was having, as he said, marital problems before the fight. And I know from people inside the camp that he was up late that night. He was having some issues, and his head was in a different spot. Yeah. And I think if you're a guy like Manny Pacquiao, who is a very aggressive fighter, your head better be in the right spot, because You're not just sticking, moving. You're going in.
Yeah.
And he just didn't look good. But hey, he did win the fight.
Yeah, of course.
At least on the
still won the
scorecard.
Yeah. So the sort of point I'm making is that having come through those two encounters with Mosley, fantastic counterpuncher, fantastic defensive fighter when he wants to be, making it hard, and then Marquez, a bit of a bogeyman, but more than that, Manny's head not being right. So if there were problems going into this fight, I think that I'm convinced that Bradley's chances would be boosted. But what I'm hearing, not just from you, but from another pal of mine who's out in Vegas, and you've said it quite strongly, there are no problems. Quite the reverse. He's looking, to quote you, he's looking younger and he's looking motivated.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, you're talking about his head, but I would also look at his calves, because in the last two fights he's complained about his calves.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wrote an article about that, and I'm not sure if it's really a physical ailment where he's having problems, or if it's in his head when he gets in, because when he gets into trouble in a fight, he tends to say, "Hey, my legs are hurting me," and that's never shown up in brain. So I think if you're watching this fight, you're gonna want to hear what he's saying in the corner, and if he's complaining about his calves, then maybe his head just isn't in the fight.
Listen, Gary, before I let you go, how do you see it going? Just 10 seconds. How's it going to end?
I think Pacquiao with a knockout in the 6th.
Gary Paul, it's always a delight and a pleasure having you on the show. I'd love to use you more. Your book is absolutely fantastic. Pac-Man Behind the Scenes with Manny Pacquiao. Gary Paul, who's out there in Las Vegas getting ready for the fight this weekend. Thank you very much indeed for your time.